Welcome back to StatStream, your go-to place where we dive deep into decision-making, economics, and the real forces shaping global markets. Today, we're tackling one of the decade's most fascinating and complex stories, the UK's steep decline into economic turmoil. The nation, once hailed as a global financial powerhouse, is now grappling with unprecedented challenges. How did the UK, a country so influential for centuries, find itself on the brink of economic collapse in 2024? Stick around because we're not just scratching the surface today. We'll peel back the layers of this crisis and uncover what it means for the UK and economies worldwide. Let's dive in. The United Kingdom, home to the Industrial Revolution, global trade empires, and a financial system that has impacted the world for generations, now faces one of the darkest periods in its modern history. The crisis is far more complex than rising debt or inflation. It's a story of political missteps, economic dependency, and unforeseen shocks that have rippled through every layer of society. First, as of 2024, the UK's debt stands at a staggering 99.5% of its GDP. That's nearly as high as the country's entire economic output. Germany's debt sits at just 63.7%, Ireland's at 42.5%, and India's at 58.2%. So why has the UK's debt surged so drastically? But more alarmingly, it's not just about the debt. It's about a country stuck in reverse. The workforce is shrinking, not expanding. People are leaving jobs due to long-term sickness, and productivity has stagnated since the 2008 financial crisis. In key sectors like healthcare, hospitals are crumbling under pressure and cannot staff enough nurses. Almost half of all patients in emergency rooms now wait more than 4 hours for treatment. Truck drivers, over 100,000 vacancies. And poverty? It's rising at the sharpest rate in 30 years. Inflation, too, is out of control. The UK faces inflation rates of over 11%, the highest in 40 years. Let that sink in for a moment. Millions of families in one of the world's wealthiest nations are struggling to put food on the table. Some 2 million people in the UK now go without food for at least one day each month. So how did we get here? It's impossible to unravel this crisis without returning to a pivotal moment. June 23, 2016. That was the day of the Brexit referendum, a decision that would send shockwaves not only through the UK but across the globe. That day, 52% of voters left the European Union, driven by promises of reclaiming sovereignty, controlling immigration, and cutting ties with a bureaucratic EU. But what was sold as a path to prosperity quickly became an economic quagmire. And here's where the real story begins. The European Union wasn't just a trading bloc, but the lifeblood of UK trade. Goods, services, capital, and people moved freely across borders, and UK businesses had unrestricted access to 27 member countries. From an economic standpoint, it was the best of both worlds. Sovereignty with shared prosperity. After Brexit, the UK lost all of that. Goods crossing into the EU were suddenly subject to customs checks and tariffs. British exporters drowned themselves in red tape, especially small and medium-sized businesses. The frictionless trade that once fueled the UK's service-based economy ended. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The UK's economy is overwhelmingly dependent on services, with 81% of GDP coming from finance, legal services, and consulting. Service-driven economies face a challenge different from manufacturing economies that can scale production quickly. Scaling a service industry isn't just about adding more machines or employees. It's about navigating complex regulations, maintaining human capital, and, in the case of the UK, dealing with multiple legal systems after Brexit. Imagine being a financial services provider that used to do business seamlessly across the EU. Now, post-Brexit, you have to comply with the legal frameworks of 27 different countries. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a fundamental shift in how these businesses operate, and many are buckling under the weight of this new reality. Brexit also triggered another hidden crisis: labor shortages. After the UK left the EU, nearly 200,000 EU citizens left the country, many of them working in critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and transportation. Fast forward to today, and the UK is struggling to find the workers it needs. Over 100,000 truck drivers are missing from the workforce, leading to severe supply chain disruptions. And it gets worse. The UK now faces a shortage of over 30,000 nurses. Think about that for a moment. One of the world's wealthiest countries cannot staff its hospitals. The consequences are devastating. People are waiting for hours in emergency rooms, surgeries are being delayed, and healthcare professionals are burning out at alarming rates. So how did the UK respond? The answer: austerity measures, and this is where the downward spiral begins. Austerity cuts are a familiar story in the UK. Following the 2008 financial crisis, the government slashed public spending to reduce debt. While it worked in the short term, the long-term consequences are now painfully clear. The cuts to public health services, education, and social programs hollowed out the very systems people relied on during times of crisis. When COVID-19 hit, the UK's healthcare system was already teetering on the edge. The pandemic pushed it to the brink. Chronic underfunding, overworked staff, and labour shortages created a perfect storm. And just as the country began to recover from the pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war triggered a new set of problems. Supply chain disruptions, skyrocketing energy prices, and a fresh wave of inflation. Suddenly, the UK found itself trapped in a vicious cycle. The government couldn't spend more on public services without increasing debt. But without public health and welfare investment, more people were getting sick, leaving the workforce, and contributing less to the economy. This created a feedback loop where shrinking productivity and lower consumer spending further weakened the economy. Now let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just a UK problem. What we're seeing in the UK could be a harbinger of things to come for other service-dependent economies worldwide. Here's the big question. Can a country so reliant on services survive in a world that increasingly demands tangible goods and strong manufacturing bases? The UK's current predicament may force other service-based economies to rethink their strategies. The UK has long prided itself on being a global leader in financial services. London, once the beating heart of international finance, London still holds that title to some extent. However, with the exit from the EU, London's crown is slipping. Financial services firms are relocating their operations to cities like Frankfurt and Paris. Europeans are now filling jobs that once belonged to British citizens. This is the crucial point. Once a service-based economy loses its foothold, it's incredibly difficult to regain it. Manufacturing can be restarted, supply chains can be rebuilt, but services, once gone, they are incredibly difficult to bring back. So where does this leave the UK? It's now stuck in a delicate balancing act. The government needs to spend more to fix its crumbling infrastructure, particularly healthcare and transport. But increasing public spending raises debt. At the same time, it can't raise taxes without further crippling an already struggling population. Inflation is eating away at wages, and food prices are rising faster in decades. Even removing London from the equation paints a grim picture. Many regions of the UK are as poor as Mississippi, America's poorest state. This isn't just about economics. It's about people's lives. Families face tough choices, paying the bills, putting food on the table, or saving for their futures. Economic instability creates a ripple effect, leading to higher levels of stress, mental health issues, and societal divisions. Let's pause and think about this for a moment. What does it mean when one of the world's richest nations has people going without food for an entire day? What does it mean when healthcare systems are on the verge of collapse and workers are leaving the workforce in droves due to illness? The UK's economic crisis is not just a story of numbers. It's a story of human hardship that raises questions about modern economy's fragility. This is a powerful lesson for all of us. Whether you're watching from a service-driven economy like the US or a manufacturing powerhouse like China, the UK's struggle is a warning sign that no country, no matter how wealthy or historically powerful, is immune to collapse if its foundations are weak. Before we wrap up, consider this. Could the cracks in the UK economy be the early signs of a larger global shift? As countries worldwide face rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and labor shortages, are we heading toward a more turbulent economic future? These are the questions we'll be exploring more in future episodes. If you found today's analysis thought-provoking, hit that like button to support StatStream. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most pressing issues. Also, be sure to check out our video, Unveiling the Truth Behind MIT's 2040 Collapse Warning, where we discuss the potential global shifts that could reshape our future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.